Again, my name is Brian Tollefson. I'm the current president of the Washington State Bar Association. I want to welcome all of you here today to this tribute to our 50-year members. Each of the people here being honored today has been a member of the Washington State Bar Association for 50 years. Half a century of service. Now, that's quite an accomplishment when you think about it. And you should be justifiably very proud of your service as an attorney here in Washington State. The bar has a very rich history, and you are all a part of that history. Looking back, one has to appreciate what the founders of our great state bar and what their vision was for our profession in this state. With the 35 original members in 1890, we can all form mental pictures of what the practice of law was like in those early days of statehood. I imagine you can share colorful stories of how your practice has evolved over the years and your experience in addressing the growing need for legal services in our state. I'm close to 50 years of practicing law myself. I'll be sitting in one of these seats in about 4 years. And one thing we all know is that change is constant in our society and in our profession. But the one thing that I believe that hasn't changed is our commitment to maintaining a noble profession, one founded on serving the public, a profession we can remain proud of for many anniversaries to come. Today, our wish is that you enjoy this day, take pride in your accomplishments, and your 50 years of service and membership in the Washington State Bar Association. It's your time today. We also have members of our Board of Governors from the Washington State Bar Association here today, and I'm going to ask them to stand when I announce their name. Past President Kyle Schicchetti, District 3 Governor Lauren Boyd, District 7 North Governor Matthew Dresden, Governor Brent Williams-Ruth, District 8. District 9 Governor-elect Kevin Fay. We also have our Executive Director of the Washington State Bar Association here, and I'd ask that she stand and be recognized. There she is. And we also have members of our Washington State Bar Association staff and executive management team here today, and I don't know if they want to stand and wave or whatever they want to do, but we can't do things like this without them being involved, and I really thank them all very, very much for their being here today and helping us celebrate 50 years of membership. This year we're going to honor 47 members and counting, because I think we've had a couple of add-ons, who have each solidified 50 years of membership with the bar. Collectively, you represent approximately, because we've had some add-ons, so this number is not exactly right, but 2,350 years of service to the public and to the profession. That's a lot of years. And that's just the 50-year members in the room. It's quite an incredible record of service, and so to all of you, again, congratulations. We thank you for your service to the profession and your commitment and dedication to your years of service. I'm also pleased to honor and welcome our Supreme Court Justice Sheryl Gordon McCloud, who is with us this afternoon. She'll be addressing us all very shortly. And now, without much further ado, I do want to introduce Sheryl Gordon McCloud. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce her. We are delighted that she has joined us to speak today. Justice Sheryl Gordon McCloud was elected to the State Supreme Court in 2012 after a career of helping clients fight for their constitutional and individual rights. As a justice, she serves as chair of the Washington Supreme Court Gender and Justice Commission, as a member of the Supreme Court Rules Committee, and as the liaison to the Supreme Court's Pattern Instructions Committee, on which she previously served as a lawyer member. She's also on the Washington State Bar Association's Council on Public Defense. She speaks regularly at legal and community events throughout the state on topics ranging from ethics to criminal justice. Justice McCloud brought a wealth of appellate experience with her when she came on the bench. She handled hundreds of cases before the Washington State Supreme Court and other appellate courts. She practiced law and showed a record of commitment to communities of color and a long history of providing legal assistance to those who lacked the ability to pay. In one of her first volunteer cases, she helped successfully defend a woman's right to pregnancy disability leave in the United States Supreme Court. She also taught at the Seattle University School of Law and has published several articles. Her legal expertise was recognized by her peers before she joined the bench. For example, she received the Washington Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers' highest award, the William O. Douglas Award, for extraordinary courage in the practice of law. Her commitment to justice is still recognized by her peers now that she is on the bench. She has a track record of work as a justice. In 2015, the Washington Women Lawyers King County chapter honored her with the President's Award. In 2018, the Cardozo Society of Washington State presented her with the award. I think it's pronounced L'Or Vidor. I was just about to say that. Yeah, it's harder to pronounce if you don't have that phonetic spelling there. Okay, Justice McCloud, welcome up here, and please give her a round of applause.
President Tollefson said I'd be speaking to you shortly, and he was being literal, so we're rearranging because I am speaking to you shortly. Thank you. Let's see. Well, greetings, class of 1972. Gratitude to you and fellowship for all of us are going to be my key words today. And as I said when I came in after sitting in 2 hours of traffic, gratitude, gratitude. Remember gratitude, not always easy. How am I sounding, okay? Okay. Well, this is mainly a big thank you. Thank you to the class of 1972 for all the foundational work that you have done building up our independent courts as judges, both state and federal, as lawyers in those courts, for building up our legal services organization, sometimes from the ground up. 1972 was the year that the U.S. Supreme Court for the first time recognized the right to counsel for people charged with a misdemeanor. So there might have been a couple more legal service jobs in 1972. Thank you for increasing the level of practice in our state, in both state and federal courts. And thank you for developing our law school visions and curriculum in this state. I think I've covered the ground of what this class of 1972 has been into, but maybe not. And I want to be clear that I'm not thanking you for your bar number or your age. I'm thanking you for your perspective. And I think perspective is key here. Apparently it's really easy to lose your perspective of gratitude. It just took me, driving through Seattle on I-5. So it's a constant struggle. But in this day and age, I think it's particularly difficult hearing voices often saying, we have not progressed at all, saying civil discourse is too difficult, saying isolation, even isolation in how we're working as service professionals, is normal. So I want to point out that even the span of 50 years, 1972 to 2022, might not be enough to put things in perspective, because you can hear the voices now saying what a great threat we are seeing to the dignity of the office of the president. Well, there was Watergate in 1972. Or you hear voices now saying, what a great threat, all the political violence that we see. And we do see political violence and threats, even threats on judges. Well, there was the assassination attempt on George Wallace in 1972. There were the 8 Israeli athletes killed at the Munich Summer Olympics in 72. And it was all in the wake of RFK, MLK being shot, the students, the 4 students at Kent State being killed, the South Carolina State University at Orangeburg students being shot, and the 2 killed at Jackson State College. So I'm not sure that even 50 years gives us the perspective that we might really need. So instead, I prepared a short history of the United States of America and of Washington to give you today, focusing on, as chair of the Gender and Justice Commission, women's progress towards full participation in the ranks of civil life in this state. And it's difficult for me to see because I'm looking into the light. I looked at the list, and it looked like there were 5 women in the class of 1972. Can I just have a wave from the... Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for paving the way for me. Okay, 1790. Naturalization Act is passed by Congress. Limits naturalization to free white persons of good character. And of course, women weren't voting then. 1837, Lucretia Mott helps organize the first national female anti-slavery convention in New York City, my hometown. 1848, Seneca Falls, New York, first women's rights convention organized by Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. More on her in a moment. 1851, Stanton meets Susan B. Anthony, and they begin their work together on women's suffrage, or more accurately, some women's suffrage. Stanton spoke against suffrage for the enslaved African American population in this country. And you know, there were women enslaved as well as men. 1854, let's come to Washington, but it's not Washington State, it's the territory. And the Washington Territorial Assembly passes voter qualifications, and they state, quote, white male inhabitants over the age of 21 years, close quote. Representative Denny initiated an amendment to include women, but it failed. But I really do think of the Denny regrade differently now that I know that. Throughout the 1850s, African Americans, including African American women, no, I take that back. African American men could vote in 6 states: Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island, and New York. And in New York, if you were an African American man, you had to show that you owned $250 worth of freehold property. Okay, 1857, the decision we know as Dred Scott versus Sanford. Actually, when I read it, I realized it was about Dred Scott, his wife Harriet Scott, and the 2 daughters, Lizzie and Eliza Scott. But as to all of them, it held slaves are the property of their owners and cannot become citizens. Civil War, 1865, 13th Amendment ratified, abolishes slavery. Washington State in 1867, Washington Territorial Legislature passed a voting law. It still included the word white in it. 1868, 14th Amendment, full citizenship to formerly enslaved people. And 1869, the first state recognizes women's right to vote. No, not Washington. Wyoming. It did not recognize the right to vote for Native American women. 1870, 15th Amendment ratified, right to vote for African American men. Of course, poll taxes, Jim Crow, literacy tests prevented that on paper right from becoming a factual right. Well, back to Washington, 1875, territorial legislator Elwood Evans tries to pass a women's suffrage bill, and it fails, but that is the last time that I get to blame the legislature. From here on, we're going to be blaming the Supreme Court, the Washington Supreme Court. 1878 in Washington, delegates at Walla Walla at the convention to draft a constitution rejected women's suffrage, but Congress rejected the application for statehood. So moving on, not because of the rejection of women's suffrage. 1882, Chinese Exclusion Act is passed. So when you're thinking of women participating in citizenship, I really want to disaggregate it as much as I can by which women. The Chinese Exclusion Act bars certain people of Chinese descent, women as well as men, from becoming citizens. No citizenship, no right to vote. Washington in 1883, Washington Territorial Legislature recognizes women's right to vote. Washington 1887, that was challenged in the Territorial Supreme Court, so not the state Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled that the 1883 statute was invalid, that its phrase, quote, all qualified electors, close quotes, which was supposed to be referring to all those who could vote, even though it did not, by its text, limit that phrase to males, couldn't possibly have meant women. One of the more interesting jobs of legislative interpretation I've seen. Let's see, 1884, Elk versus Williams, U.S. Supreme Court. No birthright citizenship for indigenous Native American people, women or men. 1887, the Dawes Act did recognize citizenship of certain Native Americans, those who rejected their very own tribal affiliations. So, back to Washington and the 1888 territorial legislature reenacted women's right to vote. Go legislative branch. Same year, territorial Supreme Court declares that statute unconstitutional. It says the word citizen in the state's Organic Act could not possibly have meant women. 1889, statehood for Washington. The Washington Constitution did not contain a right to vote for women. But things were going on in our state and nationally. 1896, the National Association of Colored Women was founded. This was a group of women who were fighting for suffrage. Suffrage for women and suffrage for African American people. Both together with the motto, lifting as we climb. Washington State, 1898, another attempt to amend the Constitution to include women with a right to vote, another failure. And then Washington, 1909, the Washington Senate passes women's suffrage. It goes to the voters. In 1910, it passes. Spoiler alert, your Washington Supreme Court did not overturn that one. Woo! Yeah, I know. Okay. Like gratitude. 1919, the 19th Amendment passes, and in 1920, the 19th Amendment granting suffrage to some women was fully ratified. But some women is the key here. As of 1920, who was left out? Women and men of Chinese descent, who were Native Americans, who were African American, though this was in fact not on paper through Jim Crow and violence and the like, Japanese heritage women and men, and East Indian heritage women and men. Now, how do I know that? Because of a pair of U.S. Supreme Court cases that I have to read the holdings of each time because they're so ungraspable that I can't be trusted to remember them. In 1922, in Takao Ozawa versus United States, the U.S. Supreme Court held that people of Japanese heritage could not become naturalized citizens. The reasoning was that the Japanese were Asian, so they could not be white, and citizenship was reserved for those who were white, or, per the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, African American. 1923, an East Asian Indian immigrant goes to the Supreme Court, Bhagat Singh versus United States. He was from the country of India, and at that time, the United States was stripping citizenship from all Asian Indians who had previously been naturalized. The U.S. Supreme Court held that naturalized citizenship extends to free, quote, free white persons, close quote, and African Americans, that Indian subcontinent Indians are, quote, Caucasian, close quote, not Asian, as in the Takao Ozawa case, but they're still not, quote, white, close quote, and that's the prerequisite to citizenship. So that's where we're coming from. And of course, I'm here with gratitude and because of our fellowship. So I want to recognize in 1924, the Indian Citizenship Act, referring to indigenous Native Americans, passed. So those Native American women who were affected by it have had maybe 98 years of the right to vote. Probably less, because New Mexico became the last state to recognize Native voting rights, and that was in 1960. 1943, the Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed. Of course, you know, things go back and forth. 1942 was Executive Order 9066, Japanese internment or incarceration during World War II here in our state and on the rest of the West Coast. And although it did not strip Japanese Americans of citizenship or the right to vote on paper, as a practical matter, it did, because you really couldn't get your mail or your internet that quickly in 1942 to register and to vote. But again, 1952, gratitude, McCarran-Walter Act, Asian immigrants can become citizens. So those people, including women, have had maybe 70 years of the right to vote. 1964, 24th Amendment ratified, bars poll taxes. 1965, Voting Rights Act passed. So women and men affected by that have now had about 57 years of the right to vote, and on and on. I'm not being sarcastic when I say I came here in a spirit of gratitude and fellowship. I'm so interested in where we came from. I'm really interested in where we're going as well. And I have gratitude for every small step along the way. So when I talk about your perspective that I hope you continue to mentor all the rest of us with, I know that you are probably thinking the same thing I'm thinking. When I hear we have not progressed, I think, when I'm my better self, I think progress comes in fits and starts and constant work. When I hear civil discourse is too hard, I think civil war is even harder. Civil war is even harder. Civil discourse is what we need. And resolution of disputes peacefully through the courts is what we need. And when I hear, oh, isolation is normal for work, even for service work, like we are all doing, I think to everything there's a season, sometimes isolation, okay, but as you're mentoring now, and as we're celebrating now, and as we move into the future, it's got to be a season of fellowship. And I'm so thrilled that I was able to talk to you about fellowship and look you in the eyes rather than be on Zoom for this. So, closing with gratitude. Thank you for using your broad historical perspective to build our courts, to build our law schools, to build our legal service organizations in fits and starts, through civil discourse when we're at our best, and through fellowship. Thank you so much.
Okay, folks, we're going to take a short break, about maybe 10 to 15 minutes, so please continue to enjoy your lunch and your dessert. And thank you again, Justice McCloud, for your very, very insightful comments. Really appreciate it. Enjoy some collegiality and conversations during this break, and we'll be back to talk about the recognition of our class of 72 and the presentation of the 50-year certificates. About 10 to 15 minutes. Thanks. Okay, folks, it's our great pleasure here at the Washington State Bar Association to present each of our 50-year members with a certificate and a pin. Now, when I call your name, would you please either stand or raise your hand? You don't have to come up to the front, all right? You can stay right where you are. We're going to have one of our board members walk over and present you with your pin and certificate. And pretty much this list is alphabetical, so all of you who are like me who have that last name that's way down the list have to wait patiently, okay? First, and also I want to apologize profusely in advance if I mispronounce anybody's name, because I'm going to do it. I just know. I'm looking at some of these names. I just know I'm going to do it. So I apologize in advance for doing it. Okay, Robert Adolph. Robert Adolph. Susan Allen. Susan Allen. H. Daniel Osted. H. Daniel Osted. And here's a name I know. This gentleman, I'm gonna embarrass him slightly. He and I were judicial colleagues together for a number of years. And when I served on the Board of Trustees for the Superior Court Judges Association, he was the president of the Superior Court Judges Association. Daniel Burschauer. Tom Bigsby. Richard Blacklow. John Henry Brown?
No.
Nope. Okay. Charles Lee Burns. Charles Lee Burns. Steve Busick. Steve Busick. Jay Causey. Jay Causey. William Coates. So I'm going to embarrass this guy too. Bill was my employer for about 5 or 6 years. And then when we were partners for a number of years before I got elected to the Superior Court bench. So welcome, Bill. Congratulations. Oh, and his wife Wanda is here too. All right. William Davis. William Davis. Carl Ege. Carl. Donald Elliott. There's Donald over there. Steve Frederickson. Joseph Gaffney. Not here. All right. Well, congratulate Joseph anyway, and we'll make sure he gets his certificate and pin. Dale Galvin. There's Dale. Sandra Bay Gates. Did I say Gates? Gay. Sandra Bates Gay. A little dyslexia going on there. Daniel Glenn. Daniel Glenn. Michael Hall. Michael Hall. No? No Michael Hall? We'll make sure he gets his pin and certificate. Malcolm Harris. Malcolm Harris. Oh, I know I'm going to pronounce this one wrong, probably. Kinney Hawes. Oh, no, I got it right. All right. Chuck Henry. James Jory. James Jory Jr. Keith Kessler. Hey, Keith. Kevin Kirkavold. Kevin Kirkavold. Rochelle Kleinberg. Rochelle Kleinberg. John, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, John Leek? Leck? John Leck. Tom Malone. Tom Malone. Arthur McGarry. Alan McKenzie. Jane Ann McKenzie. Douglas McQuaid. Joseph Nappy. And Joseph is a former member of the Board of Governors of the Washington State Bar Association. What years were that? Okay. William Oltman, somebody else I'm going to embarrass because William is a neighbor. We used to go to church together until I switched churches, and and he's a retired professor at Seattle University School of Law. Carl Puttigam. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry, excuse me, Clark Puttigam. Clark. Got James Purcell. James. Frederick Darrell Reed. Paul Roche. Paul. Brian Scott. Brian Scott. There he is, way over there. Mel Simberg. Mel Simberg. There he is. Michael Stevenson. Where's Michael? John Strait. John. Robert Taub. Oh, where's Robert Taub? Oh, he's back up in the back with the nice, beautiful blue jacket on. Okay, somebody we probably all know because we used his evidence handbooks and his evidence texts, Carl Tegland. David Thorner. Michael Withy. Michael Withy. Judy Young. Judy. Oh, there you are. Okay, I'm hoping I didn't miss anybody, but does anybody feel like they've been missed or excluded or crossed out? We have your pins and certificates here, but hopefully I got everybody. Okay. So, folks, just remember how important it is that we honor you, and please join me in congratulating all of our 50-year members. Okay, group photo time. We're going to try and capture this moment, so I would ask that all the 50-year members please go to the lawn to the left of the patio outside. And we have some folks that are going to help those who need a little extra assistance to get there too. We'll be taking your group photo, and then afterwards, please take your seats again for our dessert and closing remarks. So, lawn to the left of the patio outside.
Okay. All right, everyone look at the lens. Big smiles. 1, 2, 3.
Can there be one of the women?
Absolutely.
They don't share their... Thank you.
Oh, wait.
a little more.
Yeah, our professional is going to...
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. Please continue to enjoy your dessert. I just have a few closing remarks to make. I do want to thank everybody for coming here today, those we honored and those who came to honor each of you. It's been a real pleasure and a reminder to me of why we are proud to be lawyers here in Washington State. I congratulate and commend our 50-year members for the difference you've made in our profession and your contributions in shaping the bar's history and his future. We conclude the end of our luncheon now. Please feel free to stay for a little while longer if you'd like, and thank you again for such a memorable day. And give yourselves a round of applause.